Welcome back. We got better than expected jobs numbers a moment ago. The October ADP crossing the tape right now, coming in higher than expected at 42,000 jobs added to the economy in the month of October. The estimate was 28,000, so a little better than expected. Markets have been lower this morning, a fractional decline. The Dow Industrials right now down just 2 points. The Nasdaq and the S&P 500 well off of the lows of the morning. Meanwhile, the Supreme Court set to hear oral arguments this morning in a case challenging President Trump's tariff authority. The president calls this case, quote, literally life or death for the country. He goes on to say on Truth Social, with a victory, we have tremendous but fair financial and national security. Without it, we are virtually defenseless against other countries who have, for years, taken advantage of the United States. Here's the White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt yesterday.
The White House is always preparing for Plan B. It would be imprudent of the president's advisors not to prepare for such a situation. With that said, we are 100% confident in the president and his team's legal argument in the merits of the law in this case, and we remain optimistic that the Supreme Court is going to do the right thing. The importance of this case cannot be overstated. The president must have the emergency authority to utilize tariffs. Look at what President Trump has been able to do with the leverage and the power of tariffs. He's been able to sign peace deals all over the world and end global conflicts and literally save lives. He's been able to bring in trillions of dollars of investments into our country.
Joining me now is former federal prosecutor Jonathan Fahey. Jonathan, great to see you. Thanks so much for weighing in on this. What are your expectations for the Supreme Court decision?
I first of all agree with President Trump and Caroline Leavitt how important this is. I think there's two things with the Supreme Court decision to look at. There's sort of two aspects of this. Was it proper for him to declare these are emergencies, or are these just usual things going on, such as the trade deficit, the fentanyl crisis, and things like that? That part of it, I think the Supreme Court will give enormous deference to his decision on that, and he will win that part of it. The second part of it is, can he impose tariffs as part of his ability to regulate under this? I think that's a tougher question, but I think he will still win because President Trump's argument is going to be, well, the tariffs are not just a tax, but they're enable us to do the things we need to do for these national security concerns. And in fact, they've been working like what Caroline Leavitt says. We're getting peace in the world. We're getting other types of things. We're getting investments that are vital to our national security. But I think the second part is the trickier question. And the Supreme Court will ask questions, well, whether or not this is actually just a tax, and a tax should be imposed by Congress. And the administration will say this bill was imposed by Congress and gives the president this authority. So I think he will squeak out a win here, but it might be they might narrow the ability to impose the tariffs. But I think ultimately it'll be a win, and it will be a big win for the country, as we've seen during the past, 6 months since this has been imposed.
Well, I think it's worth noting that earlier this year, when Standard & Poor's came out assessing the U.S. economy, they kept the U.S. at a AA+ rating and a stable outlook. And one of the meaningful points was tariff revenue, and that tariff revenue would generally offset the negative impact of the fiscal situation. And a bond market taper tantrum could follow if, in fact, we see the IEEPA tariffs going the other way. But the president does have backup plans, and we've spoken with this a number of times with the president. I've asked him about the backup plans. He's got Section 112, which is the balance of payments authority, which in 1974 law allowing the president to impose an additional 15% tariff on imports for 150 days. He's got the Section 232. This is the national security sectoral tariffs on steel, aluminum, and a global auto parts. He's got open investigations, by the way, there into copper and lumber and other things. He's got Section 301, unfair trade practices, original China tariffs back in 2018. That's where he used that. And then he's got Section 338, Tariff Act of 1930, which allows the president to impose up to 50% tariffs on any country that discriminates against U.S. products. He can call it discrimination. So he has backup plans here. But the big short-term issue, of course, is going to be whether or not the U.S. is going to have to pay back some tariff money that has already been collected. That's the biggest short-term issue here. If the court does, in fact, side with the two lower courts, we're talking about some $150 billion in tariff revenue the U.S. has already collected.
Yeah, that's such a good point that it's like we've collected money. Do we have to give this money back? What's the mechanism for giving it back? Who do you give it back to? And that is very interesting. But I think your point is really good about this administration always has backup plans. When they implement something, if they have a court ruling that goes against them, they have a plan B and have a plan C. But I think the best argument this administration can make in front of the Supreme Court today is, hey, if we're allowed to impose these massive sanctions or halt trade altogether with a particular country, this idea that you can't do a lesser sanction, which is a tariff, it almost seems like it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And I think that's where they should fall back on is like, hey, we can cut off trade with China, but to say a tariff is too much doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So I think there's a lot of wisdom in what they've been doing. It's been effective. And the Supreme Court really has been reluctant to get involved in the executive branch and executive decision making. And I think they may go that way, but it's going to be a very close call. I think it's going to be a 5-4 ruling.
Well, it's a big deal here. And when you say 5-4 ruling, we're watching a couple of important decisions from Amy Coney Barrett, from John Roberts, as well. Three key decisions from three key justices will be watched closely. But I want to move on and ask you about Homeland Security, because the Department of Homeland Security is warning of unprecedented violence against ICE officers. They are facing a surge in death threats and violence. Agents reportedly experiencing an 8,000% increase of threats against them. And I spoke with White House border czar Tom Homan on the program about it yesterday. Here's what he said.
Men and women of ICE, first of all, let's remember, they're moms and dads too. They don't hang their heart on a hook every day they go to work. But they're enforcing law. The same law that we've been enforcing for decades, ever since 1983 when I started. We're doing the same thing we've done for over 40 years. The problem is, in the last 4 years, there was no immigration enforcement. I started back in March saying if this hateful rhetoric continues, there's going to be bloodshed. And the left went crazy. How dare I say that? I'm a fear monger. Well, unfortunately, I was right. There's been a lot of death, either of detainees that were shot by a sniper in Dallas or people that attacked an ICE facility, and the threats on ICE officers. And the rhetoric, if it doesn't slow down, we haven't seen the end of it. There will be more bloodshed.
Jonathan, your reaction?
I think, sadly, he's exactly right. And when you first hear that number, 8,000% increase, it's almost like you have to do a double take that it's so high. But you see the Democratic Party has really been amping this up. They are the party of political violence, and it's routine for Democratic talking points to include Nazi references at this point when talking about federal agents. Yeah, like Tom said, these are moms and dads, husbands, wives, people's children that are out there enforcing law, putting their lives on the line for our safety. It's truly disgraceful. But we saw in Virginia yesterday an attorney general candidate who had basically, imagined in a gleeful way the death of the murder of his political opponents, got elected. So I don't see anything changing. So it's sad to say so.
And certainly in New York, where the mayor-elect has the power to enforce sanctuary protections, and that relies on his ability to issue executive orders and reallocate resources. So it'll likely mean more restrictions on ICE access, ending discretionary cooperation, expanding legal aid. All that is to come when the mayor starts his new job in New York. Jonathan, good to see you. Thank you. Jonathan Fahey. Stay with us. We'll be right back.